Hey guys, welcome to another episode review, audio, video, if you will. Well, we're going to talk about a certain episode. I think the title says it best. We're talking about The Void. That's right, The Void from Sonic the Hedgehog, otherwise known as Sonic SatAM Season 2. And The Void, I will say this. The Void is one of those episodes that, even though it may not seem like it's, means anything in the grand scheme of things, it actually does. One thing that Ben Hurst said in his interview he did for the Shout Factory release back in 2007 is that basically Season 2 was one big story, thus confirming, what a lot of us suspected about Season 1, that Season 1 was more of an introductory season, kind of give us an idea of what to expect, in the following season with these characters, but mostly to introduce us to who they were and what the conflict was. Now, with Season 2, like I said, it was more of a continuous story, except for 2 episodes, which were the Fed Up with Antoine, Odd Couple episode, and no, it was actually Fed Up with Antoine on Ghostbusted episode, and the Odd Couple Rebecca episode. Those are the 2 that you could just basically take to the side and, throw them out and nothing would be affected. But when it comes to Season 2, all these episodes had significant meaning. Now, depending on how they were produced and how they aired, that's a different topic entirely. I mean, I still feel that the 2-parter Blast of the Past should have been the season premiere with the way it was structured and everything, and thus leading us into things like Game Guy and No Brainer and Sonic Conversion and stuff like that. But The Void is an interesting one, to say the least, because it basically bridged a gap into what we found out at the beginning, at the end of Game Guy, which was at the beginning of the season, and basically what we'd be dealing with later on. Now, what I mean by bridging a gap is in Blast of the Past, we find out for the first time about the Void, otherwise known as the Zone of Silence in the comics. Robotnik, along with the help of Nagas, who we get introduced to formerly here in the cartoon, was the one that discovered its existence and invented a means to enter, back and forth. So basically, long story short, as we find out in Blast of the Past, basically Robotnik sends Sally's dad into the Void. What we don't know, however, is that, as revealed here in the Void episode, we find out that Nagas, and this is why Robotnik mentioned his name in Blast of the Past Part 2 to the king, basically Nagas was the first one to enter. Now, or to test out the portal to the Void. Now, what's interesting about what we find out here, in this episode, is that when Nagas first tested this out, along with Robotnik and Snively's help, it's pretty much alluded to, if not confirmed, that Nagas, not Robotnik, Nagas was supposed to be the one that takes over Mobotropolis. That was basically the vibe I got from. That's the vibe I got from watching this episode. That basically Nagas was supposed to be the one that took over Mobotropolis, not Robotnik. You see, what we find out is that Robotnik actually fears Nagas. He fears him because Robotnik, well, as we find out again in the flashback in this episode, is basically a minion. He's basically what Snively is to Robotnik. He is a minion. He's an underling. He's a sidekick to Nagas. And basically he fears Nagas because Nagas has this power to do anything possible. In other words, humiliate Robotnik by basically changing his head into the head of an animal, like a crow or a pig or anything else, a snail, whatever you could think of. Excuse me there. But that's what he does. That's the power he has. He has that kind of power. He's able to shapeshift mainly. He's a shapeshifter with all this mystic magic. And basically Robotnik fears him because he knows Nagas could, snap his fingers and do whatever he wants to Robotnik, just like that. So what happens here in the flashback that we get in the Void episode? Well, we find out that what Robotnik told the king in Blast of the Past does have merit. As I mentioned, Nagas is the first to test, entry into the Void after discovering it and inventing the means to enter. However, what Nagas warns Robotnik not to do, Robotnik does otherwise. Well, basically he does anyway. Nagas basically with the threat to torture him, change his face into any different kind of animal out there by changing it into a crow. He basically tells them, hey, if you have any thoughts of betraying me, this is what's going to happen. And, Robotnik says, I have no such thoughts. Nagas basically restores him to normal, saying, I hope not. And then basically allows Nagas to travel into the Void. Like I said, he allows Nagas to travel into the Void for the first time. But what Nagas doesn't realize, but pretty much does figure out, is that Robotnik betrays him anyway. He basically tells Snively to disable the retrieval programs, and that as he's walking away, he's telling Nagas to himself, not to trust anybody, including him, basically. Well, that's what Robotnik's telling Nagas, who's not even there, behind his back, like, you shouldn't trust anybody, including me, or especially me. Because of the fact that, like I said, Nagas warned him not to betray him, and that's what Robotnik did. But again, what makes this episode so significant is not just the fact that, that we explore the Void a little bit more than we did in the first episode, as well as we get a glimpse of it, in Blast of the Past, and we see how the king disappeared. But it's also significant for the fact that in this episode, one of the things that Ari told Sonic before he got sucked into the Void in Game Guy, towards the end of Game Guy, basically Ari tells Sonic about a group of freedom fighters, other freedom fighter groups out there, and that they're looking for Sally. And that he says the list, her father's list, before he gets, hit by a boulder and sucked right into the Void. Well, anyway, this episode follows through on all of that. Not only do we see the king for the second time since the miniseries, and he's reunited with Sally, but we also get Ari back. And this episode concludes not just with them getting out of the Void, but concludes with Sally getting the list of freedom fighters that Ari told Sonic about and Sonic told her. But this is one of those more somber episodes when you really think about it, because the somberness is that even though Nagas is able to figure out, okay, Sonic has the speed to get me out of the Void because, Robotnik disabled the retrieval programs. So he basically baits Sonic into the Void. What he does is he creates an illusion of a ring of something Sally is discovering, because he's basically using his magic to spy on the freedom fighters. So he creates this ring for Sonic to take to Sally, because Sally's, doing some research on some giants and all that, which I'm assuming she wants to, see whether or not it's true to possibly utilize that against Robotnik. But anyway, long story short, to get to the point, the ring is an illusion. It's a booby trap, and it traps both Sally and Bunnie, and basically brings them into the Void, towards Nagas. And Nagas is able to use his magic to figure out, where Sonic is, why he wasn't pulled in with them. And this, of course, leaves Nicole behind. That's right, Nicole, still in a portable AI form in the cartoon, is left behind. And Sonic's wondering, okay, where did, everybody go? Where did Sally and Bunnie go? Now, here's what's interesting. You would think they would have added in a scene where he's going to ask everybody else where the girls went. but we can assume maybe they went to go look for them as well. Just saying. Anyway, Sonic has to team up with Nicole here, and one of the traits, or one of the traits in the show, especially in the second season, is Sonic needs Nicole to translate to English. In other words, Nicole likes to talk all this techno babble that basically Sally and even to an extent Tails understands, but it's Sonic that's like, Nicole in English, every time. Every time she's trying to point something out or say this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to work, Sonic being himself, he's like, Nicole, English. So anyway, what happens is they have to pair up, and Nicole, still being Nicole, frustrates Sonic to the point that he starts shaking her, and he just wants, answers. He just wants answers as to the whereabouts of the girls, right? He just wants whereabouts, not whereabouts, but he wants answers. So Nicole basically finally has to work alongside him, or they basically have to comply with each other, and work together. And in the end, they're able to basically get to the void. The void opens up. Sonic at first is trying to get away from it until Nicole has to remind him, you're heading in that direction anyway. And Sonic's like, oh, okay. And he goes into the void. And when he goes into the void, not only does he get reunited with the girls who get frozen, basically, in ice, in crystal, before, Nagas frees them. Because Sonic, when he sees this, he's like, did you do this to them? And he's like, I assure you they're fine. Boom. And they are. They basically are fine. Because basically all Nagas did was like, look, I know you're going to explore. Well, he didn't say this entirely, but he's like, I know these girls are going to try to get a way out. They're going to try to explore, so I got to keep them in place. So anyway, long story short, Sally explains to Sonic that Nagas needs Sonic speeds to get out of the void. So Sonic, like I said, ends up getting everybody out of the void, including the king, not once but twice. The first time, it's Nagas in disguise, because he knew the only way to trick Sonic was to, or get Sonic to help him out, was to trick him, as well as the others. And then he finally does get the other characters out. Now, what's interesting is that Sonic's a little upset on the first time around, thinking he brought the king out, but it's actually Nagas, and then Nagas has to explain to him, hey, look, you should thank me. I'm about to do something that you guys need to be done, or I'm about to do something that needed to be done a long time ago. And, when he's saying this, they notice a spy eye, one of Robotnik's spy eyes showing up, and Nagas is wondering what's that. He says, and then Sonic says, oh, that's one of Robotnik's spy eyes. And Nagas is like, oh, really? Can he see us? And Sonic is like, oh, yep. It goes, oh, yeah, he can see you. And the expression on Robotnik's face is like, oh, crap. Because he realizes that for the time being, now that Nagas is back, basically his position is threatened. Like, in other words, it's a rule of thumb. It's like a rule of thumb. In other words, Robotnik knows that with Nagas back in in the world, he pretty much is back to being a lackey. Like, in other words, he has to basically give up his power potentially to Nagas and be like, yes, Nagas, sir. Anything you say, Nagas, sir. Something like that. So anyway, they do have a confrontation. And, Robotnik's on his knees like saying, hey, look, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't do it. I'm sorry. I did betray you. And everything. And Nagas, he ain't buying it, and he's just torturing Robotnik by changing him into different animals, head-wise and all that. And it gets to a point where he has Robotnik basically eating dirt as a pig. Not like an anthropomorphic pig, but a regular pig. So I guess there's a difference or so between them. I don't know. But he's basically having Robotnik eat dirt and everything. And just when he's about to humiliate him more, like maybe give him a full transformation, all of a sudden he gets zapped with something, and what he's zapped with is the fact that his legs are turning to crystal. So long story short, and I know I said that a lot here, but long story short, he has Robotnik play a little game of hide and seek, and Robotnik takes this opportunity while Nagas has his eyes closed to escape. And just as he's escaping, Sonic points it out to Nagas, and Nagas is like, I know. And then that's when they notice that the king himself is turning to crystal. And apparently, according to Nagas, he miscalculated, the effects. Like, in other words, if you're not, like with Ari, if you're not that long in the void, you don't have to worry about the effects, being turned to crystal, affecting you in a way that could kill you. And because that's what Nagas says. He just says, we've been too long in the void, we can't exist in this world, and that they have to go back or they'll die. And this is, of course, where Sally, she's upset that she just got her father back. Now she's going to lose him again. And then that's when she gets the Freedom Fighters list. And, Sonic, wishes him luck. And he, Bunnie, and Ari, along with Sally, run towards hiding spots so they don't get sucked in. And, Nagas and the king end up going back in. And then you hear the king's voice overhead, if you will, saying goodbye to Sally, saying goodbye, Sally. In other words, saying that that's it. Well, basically indicating that that's pretty much it. Now, what's interesting is Sonic. Now, what happens at the end is Sonic goes to her to comfort her, at the ring pool, and basically confirms her. Look, Nagas found a way out before. He'll find a way out again, and this time it'll be permanent. And he assures her that, look, we got Ari back and the Freedom Fighters list, so that's a good thing. And then Sally admits that, he's right, which, of course, Sonic looks like, I'm always right. And, they just have a little playful tit-for-tatter. And then he says, like I said, they have a little playful tit-for-tatter. And he says, of course I am. Ask Nicole. Well, he basically says, like I said, it's a playful tit-for-tatter. And then he tells Sally, ask Nicole. And then Nicole's like, he's cool, Sal. Ray passed. And then Sally's like, Sonic, what did you do to her? And then Sonic's like, come on, Sal. And then Nicole's like, yeah, get a grip, Sal. And then Sally's like, Nicole? It's a good episode. It's a funny episode at times, especially at the end, little playful tit-for-tatter. But it is a very good episode from a transitional, somber perspective. Because, again, it does, bring full circle what Ari said in Game Guy with the list of freedom fighters and everything. It does bring the king back into the picture once again. Last time being seen in Blast of the Past. We get more aspect on the void, as well as how long basically someone can be in the void until its effects start to affect them. We get to see Nagas for the first time, so we get to see the character that Robotnik sent into the void first, but we also get the idea that, pretty much Nagas is Robotnik's boss. Like, Robotnik is what Snively is to him, and that is a minion. He is the lackey of Nagas. So, overall, the episode is really good. And here's the thing. If you just want to watch, let's say, the Doomsday Project episodes, like Cry of the Wolf, Druid Hedge, Spy Hog, and all that, then I do recommend watching, I recommend watching Game Guy. I recommend watching the two-part of Blast of the Past, and then I recommend The Void, and then the final 4 episodes, and you should be good to go. You should be able to get the gist of what the entire season, and from a story arc perspective, is about. But that's all I'm going to say on this, guys. So thank you all for listening and watching. Comment down below. Live chat during the premiere. What did you think of The Void when you first saw it? How did you feel about it? And, just let me know. Check me out at my Teespring store, as well as check me out at BW Rose's Discussion on all your favorite podcast locations except for Pandora, as well as check me out at BW Roses on Vimeo and Patreon.com/BW Roses. And until next time, guys, God bless. Take care. I'm out. I've got to go take care of things right now.